Moving on to level 11, where the blinds are 1,000, 2,000, 2,000, and we are in serious need to double up with Ace 9 offsuit in the hijack. We've got 15 big blinds, and it's an easy standard all-in. We get the button to end up making the call, and we're up against pocket 7, so it's a complete flip, and gotta try to win this one. Unfortunately, we don't improve, and pocket 7s is gonna hold, so GG's to that buy-in. Welcome to the realistic part of tournament poker. Get it all in, try to win some flips. Sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes
I will pay you $5 for every single calorie you can burn. There's a catch though. Not all calories are created equal. Let me introduce you to the fan bike. The fan bike, also known as the assault bike, is every athlete's worst nightmare. It has one speed, and that speed is pain. You put energy in, you get calories out, and I will pay you $5 for every calorie you can burn in 1 minute. As always, I'm about to set the benchmark. Let's go. Woo, nervous. Here we go. Now, while I crank out these calories, let me tell you about an incredible new service I recently found. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering awesome boxes of top shelf goods from under the radar brands. Every box has around $70 in value, but it only costs you $45. I've added a link in the description below where you can fill out the Bespoke questionnaire. This will let Bespoke know what you are into, and they'll send you some of the most incredible products from small businesses, many of which are based right here in the United States of America. It's free to join and risk-free because you only pay for what you want. Each month you'll get a box assigned to you based on your preferences, and before it ships, you get to preview what comes inside and decide if you want to keep it, swap it for another box, or skip the month free of charge. The box lineup changes every month. I've already had several Bespoke shipments arrive at my house, including tossed, shucked, and smoked. And I must say a favorite is smoked, which not only looks beautiful, but also adds a wonderful smokiness to my weekend whiskey. To get 20% off your first box, click the link in the description below.
Let me see if the base is decayed on the server or raided. It probably is, dude. I'll be so surprised if it's still here. There's no way it's still here, right? No shot. Oh my... Welcome back to a new video, ladies and gents. I spawned in on Rostoria US Medium as a solo player, only to find out that my teammates, who I were no longer playing with, had lost all my guns. But that meant it was up to me to get some guns back. What the f- GG guys, bro! Moron. Learn from mistakes, not fuck with me ever again! It's my neighborhood. And just like that, in a matter of like 10 minutes, I already made an enemy. A great start to become one of the most hated solos on the server. So where the fuck was the raid, bro? Dude, every time there's a raid or like some gunshots I run to, it just stops and it goes completely silent. Wait. Dead to the turret. Jesus. Stop. What? Are they really river camping me when I'm like baiting them over? The custom. Where's the rock that guy was spraying me from? Was it like that? Was there one here as well? Oh. That's so bad. AK's on roof. Of course, dude. Like, How are you such a pussy? How's your dick that small? Who plays like this? Hey, congrats, you got up. He's not dead. What? This sun is gonna be the death of me. MP5 from Jesus, from Christ himself, thank you. I can climb, bitch! Wait, what? Nice ping. Get a bag up there. You're a fucking loser. Shut the fuck. I'm going back. How do you shit talk that? You have the biggest high ground. You have the sun. You have everything on your side. You have a roof cover with you, and you still lose. Holy fuck.
There's a guy with a he has a hazmat and a pistol. He's at T18. Like 18 going.
Thank you. Oh. He wasn't lying. Haha, he wasn't lying. Dude, look at my last combat log. Dude, head. Using custom and MP5 is just so fun, man. I don't even know, bro. This game is just like, it's so stale right now, but the one thing keeping me playing is custom holosight. I'm not even kidding. The only thing keeping me playing this game is custom holosight and MP5 holosight. There's no way they're still rating us, though. This is the guy. That's the guy that shit talked to me. Fuck you too, bro. Put behind. Monkey. Monkey. Same guy. Oh my god.
Yeah, this one right here. I want to watch this video, why you're not enjoying MMOs anymore. Do you guys feel like you're not having fun in MMOs anymore? Because I do feel like this is an important video to watch. I'm curious. It's an interesting video. Yes. Okay. All right, let me see it. I've waited for quite a while to watch this one, so here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Hayes, and this is MMOpinion, a bite-sized show where we talk about topics relevant to the MMORPG gaming landscape, and I give my opinion on them. Each week, we'll look at another question or point of view within the industry and analyze them. Videos are kept as short as I can make them, but long enough to hopefully generate a discussion. If you have a question or theory you want discussed, leave it in the comments below, and as usual, a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters and Twitch subs who make my channel possible. Right, let's begin. Today, I'd like to address the opinion, held by several older MMO players, that new MMO games just aren't as fun as the old ones. That the whole genre was better in the old days. I'd also like to explain why you are constantly searching for a new MMO and never quite finding the right one. Now, the rather prevalent school of thought that back in the good old days, MMOs were more enjoyable, more social, and some would say more real than the games we have today is quite a popular one. I've read no end of comments from older gamers who like to berate the newer generation for having the audacity to enjoy games like World of Warcraft or RuneScape or the Elder Scrolls.
Oh, you're talking about boomers? You're talking about like fucking Ultima Online EverQuest boomers? Oh, those guys, man. Listen, those guys are assholes. Like, I used to go to the card shop and I'd see these guys, and they're all fucking, they're all old as shit. They're jaded about everything. They have strong opinions about literally They have strong opinions about literally. They have strong.
During the Cambrian, there were five-eyed proto-arthropods. During the Triassic, there were reptiles that had necks the same length as their body. And during the early Cenozoic, there were hoofed carnivores. All of these animals are unlike anything seen before or after. So the question raises, what made these animals so strange? And the answer would be adaptive radiation. You rarely have two different types of animals inhabiting the same niche for an extended period of time, because the one that is better at the job will inevitably outcompete the other. In addition, it is difficult for living things to evolve and gain a foothold in a niche that is already dominated. Because of this, all niches become very homogeneous over time, and only really have one type of animal occupying each one. A good analogy for the way that animals homogenize is with the invention of flight. At the advent of flight, there were many different types of aeroplane, some of which looked very odd by today's standards. As time went on, many of the designs became impractical or insufficient compared to others, and stopped being used. Eventually, a set of homogeneous designs for each role was settled on, and which the new plane designs rarely stray far from. One of the best examples of this phenomena is the competition between large land predators during the Cenozoic, the period after the dinosaurs had died out. As early as 60 million years ago, there were a widespread diversity of large land carnivores. There were giant birds called forest rockids, colloquially known as terror birds, that were the main apex predator in South America. Hoofed carnivores known as mesonychids that evolved in Asia, whose closest relatives are the current hoofed herbivores. Large land crocodiles that inhabit Europe, creodonts which had a superficial cat and dog appearance and evolved in North America, and by 30 million years ago the first felines evolved in Asia. All of these animals were the large predators in their habitat, but as time went on, more and more of these animals went extinct due to being outcompeted. This niche slowly but surely moved towards homogeneity. By relatively recent times, the remaining large carnivore in most habitats was large cats. However, there are times when this trend is broken. When the environment changes, opportunities and resources can appear for animals to take. This can happen when new habitats develop or open up, like animals and plants arriving in a previously uninhabited environment. During these times, there are free ecological niches waiting to be filled, which causes massive proliferation of diversity known as adaptive radiation. We see rapid speciation as organisms of ancestral species evolve into many new forms to fulfill the requirements of their new niche. A good example of this is with the Hawaiian honeycreepers that total about 17 species of bird that inhabit Hawaii. As Hawaii is a volcanic island, it is a relatively new bit of land, and has always existed in isolation. The common ancestor of these birds may have arrived on the island about 15 million years ago, and has since diversified into lots of different species. They have many different types of beak to satisfy their different dietary needs, such as thick beaks for seed eating, long curved upper mandibles to probe for insects under the bark, and a long curved beak to get at nectar. Little competition existed for these niches on Hawaii, and so the honeycreeper rapidly evolved to fill them. To return to the aeroplane design analogy, this would be analogous to the invention of jet engines. By the 40s, most planes were fairly homogeneous, but when a new aviation technology such as jets arrived, this shook up the industry. The subsequent years to this invention saw another rapid proliferation of new plane designs, similar to the advent of flight. The aftermath of mass extinctions like the KT extinction, the one that killed out the dinosaurs, or the Permian extinction that happened before the Triassic, caused widespread global adaptive radiation. In these periods, you see many strange species that may not be able to survive in high competition start evolving from the survivors to fill the ecological niches that are now free. After the KT extinction, a group of crocodiles only known from one specimen called Pristischampsidae started developing very specific adaptations to help them live on land rather than in the water. They had long legs and blunt claws that looked somewhat like hoofs, earning them their nickname of hoofed crocodiles. Because of these terrestrial adaptations, it is thought that they hunted land mammals like early proto-horses. With the dinosaurs gone, Pristischampsidae was able to easily take the position of large carnivore in its habitat, as they were one of the larger meat-eating animals around at this time. In a moment of low competition, animals can easily evolve into new forms. In periods where there are high levels of competition, a galloping crocodile may or may not do as well as the habitat's main predator. But in this habitat, they were one of the only animals that was filling this niche, and so adapted into a large land carnivore. The period that is categorized by extremely strange fauna is the early Triassic, that was right after a mass extinction, the Permian extinction. These creatures would include Tanystropheus, that's head and neck was the same length as its body and tail combined. And there were the Trypanosaurs, that were early reptiles and previously resembled them, but then quickly adapted to life in the trees, making them take on very strange body plans. Both of these creatures don't seem to have any long established morphologies before their existence, which is a characteristic of adaptive radiation. The Cambrian explosion is also an example of adaptive radiation, but not categorized by the aftermath of a massive extinction. It was spurred on by large changes in the environment, such as evolution of multicelled organisms and the first predator-prey relationships. The Cambrian explosion did see many weird animals, like the five-eyed Opabenia, or the spiky Hallucigenia, but also saw the evolution of primitive vertebrates, our ancestors. So although we see land crocodiles, hoofed carnivores, and extraordinarily disproportionate necks as strange by today's standards, the adaptive radiation that follows these mass extinctions and the environmental changes can categorize huge swathes of ecological history and set in motion commonalities. The Permian extinction arguably spurred on the appearance of the dinosaurs, and the extinction of the dinosaurs caused the rise of mammals. For over 100 million years, nearly all animals looked like rodents, and it wasn't until the KT extinction that they were able to occupy other niches and diversify. Animals range in size, shape, and biology drastically, but there is one thing that unifies more than 95% of them and every known land animal, something that almost all animals inherited from an incredibly ancient common ancestor hundreds of millions of years ago. Squid, insects, reptiles, and mammals may be very different in a number of ways, but they are all connected by their symmetry, where they have a left and a right side, which are mirror images of each other. This group of animals is one of the largest categorizations used to label a group in the entire animal kingdom, and they are known as the bilatrians, because of their bilateral symmetry. The two-sided symmetry that most animals have is so common it is sometimes easy to miss that some animals have a different type of symmetry, and some animals have no symmetry at all. Branching just outside of the bilatrian group are the cnidarians, that contain animals like jellyfish, sea anemones, and coral. Cnidarians are united by a type of cell they have called a cnidocyte that lets them deliver a sting to other organisms. But they also have a different type of symmetry to bilatrians. They have radial symmetry, where their symmetry points outwards from a central axis, usually a body, and spikes or tentacles pointing outwards from a central point. And they make up almost all of the non-bilateral animals that aren't microscopic. There are also sponges, which apart from some notable exceptions have no symmetry. They are multiple-celled organisms, but the cells have not been organized in any sort of symmetry, and the shape of the organism is dictated by which side of the sponge is receiving more nutrients. And although this covers most types of symmetry that animals exhibit today, these aren't the only types that have ever existed. In a time known as the Ediacaran, over 540 million years ago, some creatures took on different forms of symmetry still. The fossil of an ancient organism was found in the 560 million year old rocks of central England that was named Charnia, and then later a whole fossilized ecosystems of these funny organisms were discovered on the east coast of Canada. This ancient habitat that predated the Cambrian explosion was named the Avalon explosion, because most of the fossils have been found on Canada's Avalon Peninsula. Charnia and the other organisms were named rangiomorphs, and they looked a lot like leaves, although they lived too deep in the ocean to be able to photosynthesize, so couldn't have been plants. What they are isn't entirely known, but most scientists think that they are stem animals, a very ancient lineage that branched away early in the evolution of animals that has no descendants that survived into the present. But one of the most unique and interesting things about these organisms is that they grew in a different way to anything that is alive today, as they grew symmetrically in fractals. They grew by repeating a singular basic pattern over and over again, just being a smaller version each time. But the Ediacaran wasn't just all strange fractal organisms, and bilatrians do start to appear in the fossil record towards the end of the period. In the rocks of Central Australia, there are preserved ecosystems dating to about 555 million years ago, containing the earliest bilateral animals in the fossil record. There was one ancient animal that lived among these ecosystems, known as Spragina, that looked a lot like a trilobite, and some scientists believe that they were related to the trilobites, although this isn't known for certain. and there was another bilaterian named Kimberella, which is a small animal that was thought to have lived like a slug, feeding off microbial life on the sea floor. Some scientists think that it may have been an incredibly primitive mollusk, but again, with such ancient creatures, relationships with other animals are difficult to work out. There was also a small worm-like animal called Icario wariutia that was about the size of a grain of rice that burrowed into the sands of this ancient Australian seabed. So by the Ediacaran, bilateral animals had evolved, but they were fairly obscure and were outnumbered by animals with either radial symmetry or animals with other forms of symmetry. But during the Cambrian explosion, the bilaterians became much more successful, with many new forms starting to appear, and today they are by far the most common type of animal. So why is this? Once animals have evolved a certain trait, this can open up or make other evolutionary pathways more likely. For example, different carnivorous mammals have evolved retractable claws on separate occasions, but carnivorous reptiles and birds haven't. And the ability to produce silk has evolved in a few separate occasions among different arthropod groups, but it is very rare in other animals, showing that the structure of the arthropod body or their lifestyle makes the evolution of silk production more likely. Bilaterians are the same. Their two-sided symmetry has encouraged or made the evolution of other traits down the line more likely that have given them an advantage over the animals with other forms of symmetry. In its simplest form, the body plan of a bilaterian is basically a tube with two openings, a mouth and an anus connected by a digestive tract. Over time, sensory organs, or at least the most dominant ones, have developed at the head end above the mouth. So they have a body plan with a defined front end that gives them a clear direction of travel. They encounter stimuli, like light or chemicals from food, and then move forward to apprehend it. So their body shape enables for very purposeful movement, which gives them a big advantage over non-bilaterians, that for the most part use lures or just drift through the ocean waiting for the food to come to them. There are non-bilaterian animals like box jellyfish that actively hunt fish rather than drifting towards it, but in the grand scheme of things they are quite slow animals, and they are the exception rather than the rule. Whereas complex sensory organs at the top of the head and purposeful precise movements are commonplace among nearly all bilaterians. Additionally, two-sided symmetry is a good shape for moving, as it offers a platform to have an equal set of limbs or fins on both sides of the body. Having a symmetrical set of limbs to either walk across the sea floor or push through the water are perfect to propel forward in a straight line, and offers a lot more stability as they can push from both sides of the body with equal force, and so this would have helped them move faster, but also more efficiently than non-bilaterians. This may also be the reason why bilaterians are the only animals that have conquered dry land as well, because once out of the water, gravity only becomes less forgiving, and a good stable body shape only becomes more important. It's also possible that bilaterian body plans has caused these animals to become more intelligent. The phenomena where the sensory organs have trended to become more concentrated at one end of the animal over time is called cephalization, and it is very important because it correlates with the nerves being concentrated on one side of the body as well, or in other words, the development of a brain. And over time, this process of nerves concentrating on one side of the body has created a well-defined head section and sophisticated brain in very different animal groups, like vertebrates, cephalopods, and even arthropods. And although radial organisms definitely have nerves, there is no species alive today that matches the complex brains in multiple bilaterian groups. Although symmetry offers many advantages, there are times it can get in the way of a specific lifestyle, as there are many examples of animals that have evolved to break their symmetry. Cross-billed birds have a beak that doesn't meet in the middle, and instead cross over. These birds have specialized to eat pine cones, and their unusual beak shape helps them access the seeds contained further inside. There are also species of fish, like plaice, that have made the extreme adaptation of orientating their entire body on its side as its natural position, to be able to hide itself on the sea floor better. In order to still be able to see while hugging the sea bed, they had evolved to have both their eyes on the side of their head. And probably most famously out of the symmetry-breaking animals is that some species of male crab have one claw larger than the other, which can sometimes be so large that it makes up half of their body weight. Unlike in other animals, the giant claw doesn't seem to help them. In fact, it might actually hinder them in their everyday life, as they can only use one claw to get food, whereas female crabs use both claws. Male crabs have a large claw to help attract females and fight off rival males. In these examples, the animals are still largely bilateral, and just have the odd feature that breaks the trend of the rest of the body. But there are animals that take this much further. Starfish and sea urchins, also known as echinoderms, may look like radial life, and their nervous system is spread around the body like radial organisms, but they are actually bilaterians. In fact, at the larvae stage, these animals have a clearly defined head, and although as adults they appear radial, studies have shown that both starfish and sea urchins have a preferred direction of travel. So at some point in their evolution, selective pressures force starfish and other echinoderms to live more like a radial life form. So having two-sided symmetry isn't always the best way to survive for every animal, but the bilaterian body plan shows that we sometimes take for granted how similar we are to even the most distantly related animals. Thank you for watching. A big thank you to all my patrons. If you like content like this, then consider becoming a patron as well.
For Tyler Perry, and upset that he missed the shot here, but he'll get the free throw opportunities.